بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم حميم تنزيل الكتاب من الله العزيز الحكيم ما خلقنا السماوات والأرض وما بينهما إلا بالحق وأجل مسمى والذين كفروا عما أنذروا معرضون.
الصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. We continue inshallah ta'ala the tafsir of Surah Al-Ahqaf, and we had yesterday recited and read the tafsir of ayah number 21, and then we continue from 22. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. قالوا أجئتنا لتأفكنا عن آلهتنا فأتنا بما تعدنا إن كنت من الصادقين. قال إنما العلم عند الله وأبلغكم ما أرسلت به ولكني أراكم قوما تجهلون. فلما رأوه عارضا مستقبل أوديتهم قالوا هذا عارض ممطرنا بل هو ما استعجلتم به ريح فيها عذاب أليم تدمر كل شيء بأمر ربها فأصبحوا لا يرى إلا مساكنهم كذلك نجزي القوم المجرمين. ولقد مكناهم في ماء مكناكم فيه وجعلنا لهم سمعا وأبصارا وأفئدة فما أغنى عنهم سمعهم ولا أبصارهم ولا أفئدتهم من شيء إذ كانوا يجحدون بآيات الله وحاق بهم ما كانوا به يستهزئون. This is the ayat about the people of Ad, the people of Al-Ahqaf, as the previous ayah. واذكر أخا عاد إذ أنذر قومه بالأحقاف وقد خلت النذر من بين يديه ومن خلفه ألا تعبدوا إلا الله إني أخاف عليكم عذاب يوم عظيم. So Prophet Hud alayhi salam was sent to the people of Ad, and their place is called Al-Ahqaf. Al-Ahqaf comes from the meaning of lots of sand, which refers to their place, to be said in Yemen or so. That's what Al-Ahqaf is. So it's a place. And he called them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, stating that he is not something new, as the messengers before and after him. They have the same job. أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا اللَّهِ, do not worship anyone but Allah. إِنِّي أَخَافُ عَلَيْكُمْ عَذَابَ يَوْمٍ عَظِيمٍ, I fear for you a great punishment in the day of judgment. So we talked about that. So this is the message of all the messengers. Worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, warning them if they don't, that the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be upon them in the day of judgment. Then the next ayah, which is 22. قَالُوا أَجِئْتَنَا لِتَأْفِكَنَا عَنْ آلِهَتِنَا. The translation, they said, have you come to delude us away from our gods? Then bring us what you promise us if you should be of the truthful. قالوا أجئتنا لتأفكنا عن آلهتنا. As always, as the messengers of Allah repeated from one generation to the other, from one group to another, their message is the same. The reply to the messengers is also the same. As if they got together to make the same answers together. So this is, they said, قالوا أجئتنا لتأفكنا عن آلهتنا. Imam al-Sa'di rahimahullah, he says, as أي, meaning what they're saying, ليس لك من القصد. You have no objective. ولا معك من الحق. And you have no truth whatsoever إلا except أنك حتنا عن آلهتنا. على آلهتنا. The only thing that you're doing is that you want to make us turn away from our gods that they worship besides Allah. When حتنا from الحيدة is when someone takes a detour or a different path. فأردت أن تصرفنا عنه. So all you want is to make us away from worshipping their gods. So then فأتنا بما تعدنا إن كنت من الصادقين. So they're asking for the punishment. Bring to us فأتنا بما تعدنا, with what you promise us, because the previous ayah he says إني أخاف عليكم عذاب يوم عظيم, I fear for you a punishment in a great day. So they said, bring to us what you're promising us. إن كنت من الصادقين. He says وهذا غاية الجهل والعناد. This is the utmost level of ignorance and stubbornness. And when they said قالوا أجئتنا لتأفكنا. تأفكنا from الإفك. And الإفك is different than الأفك. So al-ifk is the lie. But al-afk here, this is where it comes from, not al-ifk from al-afk, from the hamza on top, is it means to leave something. بمعنى الترك. لتأفكنا عن آلهتنا, that means you came to take us away. That's what تأفكنا means, so that you don't think it's the same meaning as al-ifk or the lie, even though it has shares the same roots. So this is لتأفكنا لتصرفنا, for us to leave, for us to turn away from worshipping these idols that they worship besides Allah. And what evidence they have is nothing but this is the ways of the fathers and the forefathers. There's no book, there's no revelation, there's no reason even, because the ibadah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has to be established upon wahy from Allah. Even reason doesn't work by itself. Reason, a person would see this universe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created, he would believe in the creator of the heavens and the earth, and he would say he subhanahu wa ta'ala deserve to be the only one worshipped. Right? But how to worship Allah, who to worship, like this requires wahy. Without wahy, that people are ignorant and they would claim that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they claim to him or they attribute to him all kinds of deficiencies and weaknesses. So then he answered, قال إنما العلم عند الله وأبلغكم ما أرسلت به ولكني أراكم قوما تجهلون. He said, knowledge of its time, meaning the punishment, is only with Allah, because they asked for the punishment. And I convey to you that with which I was sent. But I see you to be a people behaving ignorantly. So he says, Imam Sa'di in the Tafseer, قال إنما العلم عند الله. He said, indeed the knowledge is with Allah. أي فهو الذي بيده أزمة الأمور ومقاليدها. That means by the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, أزمة الأمور, all the matters, the most strong, and everything else is by Allah. ومقاليدها, المقاليد is like مقاليد السماوات والأرض, the roots of it, what's established upon. So all the matters are by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Punishment, rewards, this is not for even the messengers of Allah. It's all by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the messenger is just conveying the message. وَهُوَ الَّذِي يَأْتِيكُمْ بِالْعَذَابِ إِنْ شَاءَ. And He subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah, is the one that will bring to you the punishment if He will. وَأُبَلِّغُكُمْ مَا أُرْسِلْتُ بِهِ. I make tabligh, I convey the message of what I have been sent with. أي ليس علي إلا البلاغ المبين. There's nothing upon me except the clear balagh, the clear conveyance of the message, which is always the job of the messengers. They did not come to take the people to the hellfire or to take the people to Jannah. They convey the message, and al-balagh is mubin. No messenger of Allah fell short in this. They fulfilled their mission perfectly, all the messengers of Allah, in conveying the message. And part of the conveyance of the message is that they would be upon what they preach. So they called the people to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, and they worshipped Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. Called the people to be obedient to Allah, they were obedient to Allah. So he says, وَلَكِنِّي أَرَاكُمْ قَوْمًا تَجْهَلُونَ. But rather I see you people that are ignorant. فلذلك صدر منكم ما صدر من هذه الجرأة الشديدة. That's why it came out from you what came from this الجرأة here, the audacity for you to say something like this, that bring the punishment. You know, how dare you would ask for punishment. Even if someone, that type of statement should never be said whatsoever, except as it's mentioned in Surah Al-Imran, or when the mubahala is there. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam had the wafd of Najran, the delegate from Najran, and called them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They were Christians, and the ayat of the Quran were revealed for them to accept the message of the deen of Allah and to be upon the deen of Isa alayhi salam, and that is to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. So when they were arrogantly turning away from it, then he called them to make al-mubahala. قل تعالوا ندعو أبناءنا وأبناءكم ونساءنا ونساءكم وأنفسنا وأنفسكم ثم نبتهل فنجعل لعنة الله على الكاذبين. Let's bring ourselves and yourselves and our offsprings and your offsprings and your wives and our wives and everyone, and we become in one place, and we ask Allah, we all invoke Allah, make dua to Allah that He bring the curse upon the liars. And of course they refused, and they said if that happens they would have been moved completely from the face of earth. But this is asking for punishment. It's not a person asking for punishment for himself. He's asking a punishment for the liars from among the two. But in any other case, a person should never ask for the punishment of Allah, or asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to treat him with justice or whatever, because otherwise a person is asking for himself to be punished, or rather to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness. So their statement was a statement of jahl, statement of ignorance, because someone knows Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with his names and attributes, they would never say something like this. Which is, as he said, وَلَكِنِّي أَرَاكُمْ قَوْمًا تَجْهَلُونَ. And تجهلون, the ignorance, as Imam Kathir rahimahullah, he says, لا تعقلون ولا تفهمون. You don't have reason, you don't understand anything. So, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best if you deserve for the punishment to come now or to come later. This is by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is beyond anyone's understanding. Human beings, they have their own suggestions. They want things to happen now, to happen after 5 minutes, 10 minutes, based on their ignorance, because they don't know much. And that's part of the ilm, part of the knowledge of the people of knowledge. Knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they don't suggest as if they are suggesting to Allah how things should change. And they would say, no, that things should be like this. The punishment should come now, or this should happen now. Why this is not happening like this? This is not permissible for them, because the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by the most wise subhanahu wa ta'ala. And for them, they are ordered to be obedient to Allah. Yes, there is the longing for something good to happen for matters of deen. This is there, but when it comes to the qadr of Allah, the universal qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, part of the ilm, not the jahl, not the ignorance, is for a person to acknowledge what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. So قال إنما العلم عند الله وأبلغكم ما أرسلت به ولكني أراكم قوما تجهلون. Then the next ayah, and he mentioned the tafseer of 24 and 25 together. فلما رأوه عارضا مستقبل أوديتهم قالوا هذا عارض ممطرنا, the ayah. And when they saw it as a cloud approaching their valleys, they said, this is a cloud bringing us rain. Rather, it is that for which you were impatient, a wind, within it a painful punishment. So now the message has been conveyed. Even though it's in 2 verses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best how long He stayed with their people, conveying this message, and not just in one statement and then the matter is over with, calling them, going back and forth, making the hujjah to be established on them, and having the leniency and also the strictness in the message, so there's no compromise in it whatsoever. And when people, they want someone to warn them, they don't like for someone to warn them in a very gentle and a soft way, right? If someone is warning people from a storm coming, he's not going to say, brothers and sisters, I have something very nice to tell you. He won't speak like this, right? And they won't like him for him to speak like this. He has to make something very quick, very clear, straightforward. Run for your life. There's something dangerous happening. This is how warnings are. So, but because of the ignorance and the arrogance, right, even if they disbelieve, billah, but at least they should appreciate someone is sincere towards them. He's not coming to warn them of anything of this life, meaning for those who call people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's not threatening their life and their possessions and things like this. He's warning them of something in the hereafter. And if they don't believe in it, they can look the other way, which is also ignorant. But the point here, this is how the message was very clearly. So then all of that has been exhausted and the hujjah is established. So then the ayah فَلَمَّا رَأَوْهُ عَارِضًا مُسْتَقْبِلَ أَوْدِيَتِهِ. He says here فَأَرْسَلَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِمُ الْعَذَابَ الْعَظِيمِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent unto them the great punishment وَهُوَ الرِّيحُ الَّتِي دَمَّرَتْهُمْ وَأَهْلَكَتْهُمْ. Allah punished the people of Ad with rih, wind, that destroyed them, all of them. ولهذا قال, and that's why he says فَلَمَّا رَأَوْهُ, when they saw it. What's what it here? What's the ضمير? أي العذاب. When they saw the punishment. So they saw the punishment with their own eyes coming their way. عارضا مستقبل أوديتهم. عارضا. What's عارضا means معترضا كالسحاب. الاعتراض is when something goes sideways. So the clouds coming, covering the skies sideways towards them. معترضا كالسحاب. مستقبل أوديتهم. مستقبل facing their valleys. So قد أقبل على أوديتهم. The clouds coming towards their valleys التي تسيل, that would cause flood, and فتسقي دوابتهم أو فتسقي نوابتهم, or yeah, and from a nawba, that means when they saw this is something good, because now this is their nawba, their turn of the water to come for irrigation. ويشربون من آبارها وغدرانها, and they drink from the well and the small passages of water that comes as a result of the rain. قالوا, so they said مستبشرين, they said in the state of being happy, having great bishara. هذا عارض ممطرنا. This is عارض, what is coming here from all of this clouds. ممطرنا, it's going to rain on us. أي هذا السحاب سيمطرنا, that these clouds will give us rain, and they're rejoicing and happy for it. قال تعالى, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says بل هو ما استعجلتم به. بل, but rather, البل للإبطال. Anytime you see بل, it falsifies what's before. So it's but rather هو ما استعجلتم به, what you have been hastening for. They're asking for the punishment, so this is what you are hastening for, which is the punishment. أي هذا الذي جنيتم به على أنفسكم. This is what you الجناية is the crime. This is what you criminally acted upon yourself. This is your crime. You did that to yourself. حيث قلتم, when you said فأتنا بما تعدنا إن كنت من الصادقين, when you said bring to us what you had promised us if you are truthful. ريح فيها عذاب, this is punishment that is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that has عذاب أليم, painful punishment. تدمر كل شيء. تدمر, that means it destroys everything. He says تمر عليه, تدمر كل شيء, that it destroys everything that it passes by. من شدتها ونحسها, from how intense it is and how destructive and bad it was to them, of course. So he says فسلطها الله, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent it unto them to punish them. 7 ليال وثمانية أيام حسوما, as it's mentioned in other verses in the Quran. 7 nights and 8 days. حسوما, continuously, non-stop. فترى القوم فيها صرعى كأنهم أعجاز نخل خاوية. They all died as if they were the palm trees when it's uprooted and no heads to it. بأمر ربها. The wind was sent by the commands of its Lord. أي بإذنه ومشيئته. By the permission of Allah, by the will of Allah. فأصبحوا لا يرى إلا مساكنهم. أصبحوا, then the outcome of that, nothing is seen except their masakin, their dwellings. Only their homes are left. قد تلفت مواشيهم وأموالهم وأنفسهم. Their wealth, animals, themselves, all destroyed. كذلك نجزي القوم المجرمين. This is how we recompense and punish the mujrimin, the criminal ones. So all of that is by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that the wind تدمر كل شيء. كل شيء means everything, but except what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned. So it did not destroy everything, so that the people will see after them and to take the lesson from the ayah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So تدمر كل شيء بأمر ربها. It's commanded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there are, of course, a hadith and other verses that talks about the details of the story of the people of Ad. Then after that, the lesson to be learned. وَلَقَدْ مَكَّنَّاهُمْ فِيمَا إِن مَكَّنَّاكُمْ فِيهِ. As stated all the time, that the stories in the Quran, what is meant by it are those who are alive and reading it. Not about the nations before, it's about those who are alive, because human beings, they tend to forget. So the stories makes the ways of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala very clear. The same thing is repeated over and over again. The struggle between the truth and falsehood. And the people upon falsehood, the evidences are established against them. And if they don't listen, if they don't follow what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from them, the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they won't be able to escape it. Whether it's the moment of death in itself and afterwards, and for the nations before, it was what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, and then they return to the punishment of Allah. Imam Sa'di, he says, هذا مع أن الله قد أدر عليهم النعم العظيم. All of what happened to them, even though Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed upon them the great favors, فَلَمْ يَشْكُرُوا, they were not grateful to Allah, وَلَا ذَكَرُوا, and they did not make dhikr of Allah, did not make remembrance of Allah. وَلِهَذَا قال, and that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَقَدْ مَكَّنَّاكُمْ فِيمَا إِن مَكَّنَّاكُمْ فِيهِ. And we had certainly established them in such as we had not established you. That means, أي مكناهم في الأرض يتناولون طيباتها. We made them established on the face of earth, and they would take the طيبات and the good things of this world. ويتمتعون بشهواتها, and they enjoyed the desires of this world. وعمرناهم عمرا, and we made them live in such a way يتذكر فيه من تذكر, that is sufficient and enough for them, for anyone to be reminded. ويتعظ فيه المهتدي, and the one that is guided to receive the admonishment and to receive the benefit of what is being said. The more the person lives, the less excuses he has. So someone that is very young versus someone that is old, they're not the same when it comes to the excuses. So, and that's why when the Prophet ﷺ, he said, أعذر الله امرئ بلغ 60 سنة, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if someone reaches 60 years, there's no excuses anymore. He's still in sins when he's 60 years old. And it does not mean that if someone is 16 years old, he's not to be blamed, as people might think. No. If he reaches the age of puberty, that means he's responsible for his actions. But it's levels. So, وَلَقَدْ مَكَّنَّاهُمْ فِيمَا إِن مَكَّنَّاكُمْ فِيهِ. And then he says, وَلَقَدْ مَكَّنَّا عَادًا كَمَا مَكَّنَّاكُمْ. We made Ad established as we made you established. So this is to the people of Quraysh, when the Quran was revealed to them, to the generation that came after them, to the people of today. It's the same thing. Same thing. وَلَقَدْ مَكَّنَّاهُمْ. The people of Ad, they were established, and they would make their homes in the mountains, in the rocks, and they were mighty, strong. And we also gave you means of establishment. يَا هَؤُلَاءِ الْمُخَاطَبُونَ. All those who are addressed by this ayat. So, أي فَلَا تَحْسَبُوا. Do not think then أن ما مكناهم فيه مختص بكم وأنه سيدفع عنكم من عذاب الله شيئا. So don't think that what we gave you of establishment in this life is something special, that you're a special generation of humanity, that you're different now than all other nations before. Every nation, they think فرحوا بما عندهم من العلم, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. And this is one of the miseries of the human beings, that every time a generation comes, they rejoice of what they have of knowledge. They think that our knowledge has never been in any nations before. So now this is a unique time of humanity. That means the ways of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to be upon them. All of these things in the past is just fairy tales of the ancient. Now it's different. Every generation is like this. And this is what is stated in the Quran, not something that we're making up. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said. So don't think that this is something special for you, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you and established you in this life. Don't think that this is special for you. وَأَنَّهُ سَيَدْفَعُ عَنْكُم مِّنْ عَذَابِ اللَّهِ شَيْئًا. Or this will push away the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for you. You can now have all kinds of securities. You can dig down in the ground. You can go to other planets, whatever you think that you will be safe from the punishment of Allah. That's not going to work. بل غيركم أعظم منكم تمكينا. But rather, other than you, they were even more established than you. فلم تغن عنهم أموالهم ولا أولادهم ولا جنودهم من الله شيء. Their wealth, their offsprings, their armies did not avail them, benefit them anything from when the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala came to them. وَجَعَلْنَا لَهُمْ. This is the وَجَعَلْنَا لَهُمْ. We gave them, those who were punished, we gave them سَمْعًا وَأَبْصَارًا وَأَفْئِدَةً. We gave them hearing and seeing and hearts. أي لا قصور. There was no deficiency. قصور is deficiency. In their hearing, في أسماعهم ولا أبصارهم ولا أذهانهم. They were very smart. They able to see, able to hear. They can put things together with the message that they have been that they received. So they were given all of the means. حتى يقال, so that it will be said إنهم تركوا الحق جهلا منهم وعدم تمكن من العلم به ولا خلل في عقولهم. They did not turn away from the truth because they didn't know it, or it was not well established of the knowledge of it. It's not because of lack of reason, they're stupid or foolish. It's not the case. They had the proper understanding. They were given the tools for it, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created them to use these things to take the message. ولكن التوفيق بيد الله. With the tawfiq, the guidance is by the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So then فما أغنى عنهم سمعهم ولا أبصارهم ولا أفئدتهم من شيء. It did not avail them, did not benefit them, their hearing, their seeing, nor their hearts, من شيء. And the reason من شيء, from anything, لا قليل ولا كثير, not even small or much. Why? وذلك بسبب أنهم يجحدون آيات الله. Why it did not avail them? Why it did not benefit them? Because they denied the ayat of Allah. They denied the signs of Allah, الدالة على توحيده وإفراده. The only thing that they were asked is to worship none but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only one that deserves to be worshipped. La ilaha illallah. And then to follow the messengers. At least to save the person from the everlasting punishment is to be upon the tawheed with all of these ayat. So whoever refused, this is arrogance. This is their hearing, their eyesight, their hearts, their intellect did not benefit them. When they denied the ayat of Allah, الدالة على توحيده وإفراده بالعباد. The message of the messengers was not the details of every single thing in their life. They called them to Allah, to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. وحاق بهم ما كانوا به يستهزئون, and encompassed them, encircled them, what they used to ridicule. أي نزل بهم العذاب الذي يكذبون بوقوعه. They denied the punishment, so then it came down onto them. ويستهزئون بالرسل. They used to ridicule the messengers الذين حذروهم منه. Those who used to warn them from the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So as also Ibn Kathir rahimahullah says, the punishment at the end he says فَاحْذَرُوا, because the ayah clearly states this. وَلَقَدْ مَكَّنَّاهُمْ, we made them established. التمكين is when someone is established. الَّذِينَ إِن مَكَّنَّاهُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ, believers, when we establish them on the face of earth, they have authority, they have means to do things. أَقَامُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتَوُا الزَّكَاةَ, they establish the salah and so on. So the ayah, as we heard, وَلَقَدْ مَكَّنَّاهُمْ, the people of Ad, we established them. فِيمَا إِن مَكَّنَّاكُمْ فِيهِ, as we made you also established. وَجَعَلْنَا لَهُمْ سَمْعًا, and we gave them the hearing. So all of the means did not avail them, as the ayah says. So Ibn Kathir rahimahullah, he says after this, فَاحْذَرُوا أَيُّهَا الْمُخَاطَبُونَ, then be warned, O those who are addressed by this ayah. Anyone that reads this verse, be warned. أَن تَكُونُوا مِثْلَهُم, we warn that you become like them. فَيُصِيبَكُمْ مِثْلُ مَا أَصَابَهُم, so that what afflicted them of the punishment will happen to you also من العذاب في الدنيا والآخرة, in this worldly life and in the hereafter. So this is the warning and the admonition of the Quran, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is warning the people, and it's not limited to a specific time, but it's for everyone, for those who are reciting the Quran. So this is quickly, inshallah, briefly, as what mentioned of the people of Ad. And one thing is just to be understood, وَلَقَدْ مَكَّنَّاهُمْ فِيمَا إِن مَكَّنَّاهُم, means you receive the same thing, and another meaning to it, that we gave them more than what we gave you even. Don't think that you are that, which is an evidence that if people think that humanity reached a level of sophistication that has never been happened before, who said that? Allah knows best. They can just make up things. And every nation, they would say the same thing, right? So it's all ways to aid their arrogance, and they think that this is something completely different. It's the same thing as we said. One of the great benefits that we learn from the Quran, there's nothing new in humanity. Everything is the same, nothing new. It's the same struggle. And if a person thinks that at times when they're being oppressed, well, that's completely different. There's no way things would change like this. It's the same feeling as those who were even in a might look like a primitive way of life. It's the same feelings. It's the same arrogance. It's the same humbleness. It's the same struggle. Everything is exactly the same. And the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is exactly the same. And the outcome is exactly the same. So it's the delusion of some people in this life that the shaitan always work on them, that no, your time is completely unique. So when they read the revelation from Allah, they think this is then, not now. No, the Quran as if it's revealed today. And this is how the message of the book of Allah, fresh as if it's revealed today and every day till the day of judgment. This is the message of if there is a messenger alive today, he would not be revealing or conveying any other message except the message of the Quran, the exact same message. وَلَقَدْ بَعَثْنَا فِي كُلِّ قَرْيَةٍ نَذِيرًا فَلَا تُطِعِ الْكَافِرِينَ وَجَاهِدْهُمْ بِهِ جِهَادًا كَبِيرًا. The Quran, the ayah was revealed in Mecca, that this is the message to be conveyed. They need the message. And who's the one that carries the message? The messengers. So it was before the Prophet ﷺ, chaos, disbelief, injustices, all kinds of things. So a messenger is being sent to call the people to the truth. So after the Prophet ﷺ and after the message has been completed and perfected, which is the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, no more messenger. But the message is still as if a messenger is being sent every day. Because if, for the sake of saying if there was a messenger, he would come with the Quran and nothing but the Quran. Universal message till the day of judgment. So therefore, this is how a person benefits from the ayat of the Quran. Otherwise, people can miss so much from the ayat of the Quran and how to implement it in our life. طيب صلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us benefit, inshallah.